This was kind of like put together as a hopefully light-hearted look at some ideas and give people some food for thought for the end of the day. I hope you all had a great day. And just food for thought. So a lot of this was done post-midnight last night. Very little alcohol as well, so it's actually might make sense. So I want to go over the kind of topic is how does piracy, DRM, and democracy kind of get tied together? And I want to go over like the background of how we got here, and then present some of the ideas on maybe how we get out of here. But the purpose of this talk is just, like I said, ideas. There's no business solutions for you. There's no coding practices for you. There's no benefit to team management. It's just some ideas, and hopefully spur some interest. And who knows, maybe one day somebody will actually use some of this and build a solution. Okay, so how did we get here? Really? So if you've not been following the news over the last couple of years, certainly the last 1 year, the state of the American democratic system is being under fire. That's all kind of surfacing. Europe's the same. Lots of cyber attacks, if you like, from Russia, and lots of misinformation within countries and their domains. So if we look at the last 1 year, the stories are now surfacing, and it's in the press around technology's impact on the process. And as technologists, I think it's very important that we all understand our involvement in what's been happening, and also start thinking about solutions for solving some of these problems, because they are very important to the framework we work and live in. Without a functioning democracy, we're not going to get VCs, and without VCs, we're not going to have jobs and do the things like we like doing. So it is kind of imperative that we recognize the problem and we start looking at solutions to fix them. So, usual set of things happening right now with the usual news cycles. But again, it's not all politics. We also have conspiracy theories. So, you know, there's a total solar eclipse going on. Well, obviously planet Nibiru, I think it's called, is going to pop out from behind the moon, and I don't know, we're all going to die or something. I don't know what the deal was. No, because we're still here. I tried. And of course, there's other more serious things, which is on other social media, we have things that actually affect children's health. And we have people who've been through horrific episodes in Vegas are then accused of cover-ups and lies. And of course, we all remember Sandy Hook from 5-ish years ago. And the families there were accused of lying. It's just crazy stuff, and people actually publishing articles and trying to move forward with really, really crazy things. And I think it's irresponsible for the technology community to not appreciate, understand, and take action when things we do end up enabling this kind of sick, twisted thinking that can end up with very bad consequences for all of us. So at the end of the day, the problem is us. It's humans. Humans are pretty flawed in our ability to process information. Hence we developed calculators, hence we developed computers, and we're currently developing AIs, and God help us if they actually get intelligence developing too fast, because we're probably not clever enough to put the brakes on them. But the problem is the concept of truth. The concept of truth is, it's only recently, the last few hundred years, where the scientific method has kind of bubbled up into daily life, where people now rely on medicine more than prayer to actually get well. People rely on cleanliness rather than herbs and whatever else to not get ill. And this is all just in the last couple of hundred years of studying disease and studying how we cure ourselves from those diseases. But even then, even today, the bulk of humans, I would say, are still not particularly scientific. The amount of pseudoscience, as people of science we might say, but for other people it's actually just belief systems. It's not pseudoscience to them, it's actual belief systems. And for those people, the ability to really understand and appreciate where the belief system is coming from and how it's built and what to do with it is really quite problematic, and it confuses most people. And this is really, I think, in my mind, all down to how we evolved our brains. Our brains weren't evolved to deal with today's systems. We were evolved from small tribes with an elder or two who might talk to groups and tell them stories and teach them things. Moved on to bards, academics, authors, and we've gone from spoken, sung, I thought it was funny, presented and then published mediums of communication, where the people making the communication and the people receiving it was really kind of measured in quite small numbers, although obviously once we get to mass publishing and authorship, anybody can be an author, just about anybody can get published, and you can read thousands or millions of books if you had the time. But the whole problem is we don't have the time, and our brains are kind of evolved to deal with the fact that we don't have the time, and we have limited processing capacity, and that's great up until the internet. And then the internet comes along. Now you've got everything flooding out. You've got every story, song, video, news article, whatever, thought that anybody wants to publish. Now anybody can be a publisher, and you as a consumer can be subjected to anybody's random thought. And of course we weren't designed for this. I just thought conspiracy theories might be a function where, when you're dissolving too much of a chemical into a solution, at some point it precipitates and you just get crystals forming. Maybe that's what conspiracy theories are. They're just like information overload, and when it just doesn't compute anymore, it just spills out into Nibiru coming out from behind the sun or something. And then to add on top of it, you have social media. So the internet's great, we can all talk to each other and Skype and whatnot, great. But now you've got social media on top of it. And it provides a mechanism, and why it's so successful is it's very inherent to the way we as humans developed relationships and knowledge, methods of measuring the quality and our openness to receiving information, because we did it through our tribes and then our bards and then our academics, and it's all people we know, we have personal connection with, we have ways of measuring who they are, and we therefore measure the message that we get from them according to these kind of social constructs. Whereas out on the internet, you're exposed to everybody, anybody's view, and every opinion under the sun. And so then how are you supposed to have somebody with maybe a less than high school education, how are they supposed to be able to then magically comprehend this huge volume of information and come out with what maybe we would call a educated position. And I do also want to stay away from being snobbish about things. It's not about the educated know better than the uneducated, but it's more about a reasoned position. Anybody can reason. Doesn't matter what your education level is. Anybody can reason if you know how to process the data. So here we are. We're at a position, and this last 1 year, and right now, even in the press is right now, it's kind of clear we're at a position of information overload. We've got huge amounts of problems in our political system, our medical system, our, you name it, religious, anything. There are problems all over because we now have huge amounts of conflicting information, and social media is definitely a problem, part of it. All right, so there's how we got here. So piracy, what is piracy? It's not Johnny Depp. It is this stuff, right? So piracy, started out a while ago, and the idea was let's take digitally available content, books, music, videos, and share them without going through paywalls and other gateways that restrict the spread of that information. So the reason why all this was successful and adopted by consumers is it gave people ability to try before you buy, right? That's the best view of piracy, and I'm going to stick with it. And you may also regard the pirates as pioneers rather than just thieves. So they were forcing change into business models that didn't want to change. And this is validated to some degree. There is some good research on this. A couple of articles here, one article in the RIA website. The right-hand chart you can see here, that's volume sales, that's unit sales over the period from 1973 to nowish 2016. And you can see the volume sales have increased. They're actually about 100% higher than just inflation on its own would reflect if we were started at the numbers of 500-ish million in 1973. The revenue, of course, doesn't match, but that's because things changed. We had physical media. Physical media CDs used to cost silly amounts of money, 50 cents to make and $15 to buy. The record industry was loving it. It was look at the revenues over here, 15 billion for shipping you a piece of plastic. So they were loving it, and so they were really pissed with piracy because it re-equalized the state of affairs. It just said, this is digital information on a piece of plastic. You're ripping me off. I'm going to do something about it. And so revenues drop. But revenues drop in any market where technology steps in and does what it does and reduces the cost of manufacturing. So sure, revenue dropped, but the real number is unit sales increased. So getting out of the politics around piracy, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the politics are. At the end of the day, there's a few realities. People willingly participated, lots of people were prosecuted, but at the end of the day, the movement was so strong that consumer electronics companies had to go in and start developing technologies to try and stem the ability of pirates and content to be freely distributed. And they did that so that they would actually enable a new business model. And piracy didn't destroy democracy, it just destroyed a really bad business model. So in more abstract terms, what were pirates actually doing? They were just disseminating information freely, right? That's what the internet does today. It allows access to information freely. That information, the only application for it was entertainment at the time. But if you think about it, it's a generalization, makes absolute sense about 1:30 a.m., and I'm sticking with it. And at the end of the day, the technology that the CE companies developed, DRM, digital rights management, and that was then developed hand in hand with the entertainment industry and then deployed to every single device we all own. So what is DRM? It is a dirty word in tech circles, right, Daniel? So people don't like it because why? Well, it restricts choice, right? It restricts availability. It's like a step back in business models, but is that really a bad thing? That may not be a bad thing. It may be, and this is my proposition, it is actually a foundational technology for working in the digital age, and hopefully I'll present some stuff that'll be interesting. So the rights contain all the rules around what you can do with the content, right? So who is the actual owner, who's the artist, what's the expiry, et cetera, et cetera. The management is all the techie stuff behind it. So how does the digital signature work? How does encryption work? How do you transfer the keys to which device at what time? And the mechanism is very straightforward. There's content in, there's encryption keys to encrypt the content, protect it from unauthorized access. There's publisher's identity to provide some kind of signature, some kind of authenticity mark on the content. And now you have a protected media file. So this is what happens with everything: music, books, movies, etc. And then it's just the reverse on the other side. So you get your media file, you use the publisher's identity token, validate the authenticity of the file before you decrypt it, because it might not be what you expected. You decrypt it using the encryption key, and now you've got your content again. And so now you can play it on your device. And this is what happens inside your phone or laptop or TV or whatever, but this is what's happening. And there's really only two pieces of essential information: the identity token and the encryption key. Identity tokens are X509 certs. We probably all know about those. They're just the identity certs that are internationally standardized, and they provide a way of providing a digital identity to a device, a piece of software, or people. And then AES, again, I'm sure you all know about AES by now, but it's just a standardized crypto algorithm that's used for protecting HTTPS websites and access and so on. And theoretically, anyway, it keeps the internet secure. I say theoretically because most websites are still open to man-in-the-middle attacks, just because of poor security practices. But theoretically, it could be used to actually secure the internet if technology vendors actually bothered. So DRM to date is a technology it's a one-way. It's a publisher to consumer. Most of us are not sitting on vaults of equipment to actually perform the protection. We don't have the security infrastructure set up to have a root cert assigned to me that I can then take and apply to data that I want to publish under my set of DRM rules. It's not something that we typically do. It's not something that humans had to do. So maybe we need to start looking at democratizing it. So this can be applied to pictures, tweets, posts, recordings, videos, anything, right? So there's no reason why it can't be a peer-to-peer system and why it has to be a hierarchical system that's pushed by companies to consumers. So why is this important? because whether you like it or not, your digital behavior, your digital comments, your digital persona is being hacked right now by companies and by pirates. And they're using what you say, think, do on Facebook, Twitter, wherever else to back other agendas. And maybe you don't like that. Maybe you want to take control of that and regulate who does what with your information. And ultimately, it'd be great to eliminate fake news. So back to democracy. So the work that was done in World War II to combat the Nazi war effort was driven by propaganda. So political change through propaganda. Lots of leaflets dropped in all over not Nazi occupied territories. Happens during the Iraqi war, happens all the time. When World War II, the technology didn't exist, or war in Iraq, the technology wasn't deployed to those countries, you use leaflets. You don't do that anymore. You use online campaigns, and you then get to use the analytics engines that Google and everybody provides to then assess how well your propaganda campaign worked. That's pretty frightening. And then, refine and repeat, and you just keep going. And, next thing you know, you've got some pretty scary stuff happening. And again, it's not just about politics. Going back to the slide on vaccination, it's about every aspect of life. Every decision that we've got out there is being hacked by these mechanisms, and it's not just a kind of annoyance that's the wrong guy in the White House. It's actually life and death. So whether we like it or not, we're actually in this era right now where all of our communication is being used and it is being hacked. And it's not necessarily for things that you want it to be for. So what could we do? We could start using DRM in a more whole-scale manner that is applied to us and not just to objects that companies make money from. And so we need ways of authenticating messages. We need ways of valuing the message and whether the message contained has a high degree of truth or not, whatever that truth is. And so far, we have, this is about as much control as we have on controlling the message and our opinion of a message out in social media land, right? And most of them don't even have this. Most of them only have the thumbs up in the middle. So here's some ideas. So we have this wonderful site called Facebook. I use it all the time. Sorry for those of you that are my friends, you see my random shit, but I do use it, and lots of people are using it. I don't even know what the percentage is, but there's a very large percentage. They're into what, 2 billion users or something now, and that's pretty much covers most people who are actually on the internet have a Facebook account now. And like we've got these reactions. They're great until you come to flat Earth research, and it's like, well, how do I assess that this is a site or a group or movement that is actually trustworthy and maybe I should participate or not? And the only thing that you've got is, wow, 30,000 people like it and 32,000 people follow it. Well, that's nice. Does that mean I'm missing out? Should I be joining Flat Earth Research and reading up on the articles every day because 30,000 people, maybe 32,000 people are reading stuff every day? Seems like I'm missing out. So the possible solution to this is actually using a feedback mechanism where you don't just look at aggregate numbers like 32,000 followers, who are they? Are they my friends, my family? Are they people connected to other communities I'm already part of? Are they assessed by people that I have marked as my graders of other websites?
Are they even real people?
Are they even real people? Yeah, exactly. So there's some ideas here. So maybe what we could do is provide not just aggregate numbers of how many tens of thousands of people like something, but what does this actually mean? My friends think it's either hilarious or start crying or they're in shock. My groups are just split between crying and laughing, and the sources are flat line on flat earth. It's not going anywhere. And then even on posts within the group could follow the same thing. So there are ways that, even thinking about this over the last few months, there are ways that even sites like Facebook could do more, but they're not. And it's really something for all of us to think about as you progress your career and do your different companies. What is your social impact? How are you actually addressing some of these issues? How are you participating or not in either fixing the problem or maybe inadvertently propagating it? So we've only got a few more minutes, so cover this last couple of things. So this is like Facebook. So you log into Facebook. Facebook could do this tomorrow if they so felt like, right? No big deal. When you go across site, there needs to be something else made available between different sites. There are different sites like Twitter and Facebook that do combine through their backends, allow integration of their messaging of one platform to another. That's great, but that's only controlled by the sites that actually have partnerships and decide that they want to do that kind of thing. What about the rest of us? So the rest of us need some other method where our opinion or our article or our input can be extracted from site A and then inserted in site B, but have the assurance that the information and opinion hasn't been modified, right? And so if we look at this, here's an example of, okay, I posted something on Facebook and it's a great quote. So Daily Wine Drinker wants to use that quote. They could call a API on Facebook to get a reference to my quote. They returned the quote along with DRM data that provides a signature and expiry on the information, and now that gets embedded into the website. And now, instead of your phone only using all that DRM technology to make sure you're not breaking iTunes rules and accessing some song, it can actually be used to validate that the quote that I had on my page has made it to the next site in a authenticated manner without being modified. And so the website gets published, and there's now another circle of trust that could be developed to provide an assessment of how valid is this site, and is it reflective of all the information that it's presenting.